Fight on!
Hey guys, what's up? It's Steve again. Welcome back to Top Tier Arcade. You're in the apartment with me, and right behind me, as you can see, is a Menace Pac-Man dedicated original cabinet. So, in these videos, we're going to be taking you through pretty much the pickup. Now, what the pickup means is pretty much why I picked it up, how much I got it for, the negotiation, and the story behind it. So, let's get to it. This is the game that pretty much started it all. I said it in my welcome video when I welcomed you all to Top Tier, and I'm going to elaborate. So, here's how it went down. In 2012, a few years back, it was I think April, my wife and I were invited with friends to just go to a birthday party. It was kind of a clubby birthday party. I'm not a fan because you can't hear when you talk to people, but whatever, I just went because my wife forced me. So, at the time, I was checking out the club. It was alright. The decor was really cool. And the way they had it, it kind of looked like a stone, like kind of that stone wall, whether it was fake or real, either way. And I really digged it. I'm like, yo, this is how I want my basement to be when I start building my theater. Theater is going to be another kind of segment, the other dream that I have as well that I want in the basement. That's going to be a whole different subject. But getting back to it, I was looking around at the decor, the lighting they had it. It kind of looked like kind of the Batcave, but cool. It looked very, the ambiance was kind of like hip, but it was also just, you know, kind of like cool man cave-ish. So I was looking around and I was talking to the bartenders about the decor and whatnot, and I ended up meeting one of the party members who came to introduce himself, and he's like, hey Steve, what's going on? My name is this. You know, what's going on? What are you looking at? You got me curious, because your wife says you're a pretty funny guy and we'll get along. So I'm like, alright. I started talking, I'm like, hey man, I've been writing down, this is even before I started my arcade vision. I started, I'm like, yo, this is how I want my basement to be in my home theater and whatever else. And he goes, yeah, I wanted the same. I'm like, yeah, really? And he goes, yeah, I just bought a house. We're going to be fixing it up as we go. I have a couple of machines and I'm going to add that to the whole man cave. And I'm like, what do you mean machines? What does that mean? He says to me, I have a couple of like slot machines that I want to get. And I'm like, funny enough, I have one too, which was that preceded this, which I'll get to later on. Anyways, he told me, he goes, yeah, I want to build my man cave and how he wants it. I'm like, yo man, your vision's exactly like mine. It's weird. So as soon as we talked, we hit it off, and we started talking about, what we wanted in it with the movie theater and the popcorn machine and all that deal, which is still in the works, but that's, again, at a later time. He then said to me that he has a couple of slot machines and he was thinking of getting arcade machines. I'm like, oh yeah man, I'm a huge gamer. I would love to have arcade machines. Thinking they're thousands of dollars. And at the time my wife, we're going through, some things where we have to save money, and I'll get to that at a later time, but I'm like, no, I can't afford that, man. I didn't even know where to buy them from. I'm thinking they're done. They're done. I don't see any arcades anymore. They're now all redemption games at movie theaters. I'm like, this sucks. So he goes, no. He goes, I know a couple buddies of mine that will rebuild them. I guess someone now that I know, kind of the hobby, someone that redoes the cabinet and kind of puts it together and adds either a MAME in there or just the PCB. And which I was naive to. I didn't know. So I'm like, nah man, it's expensive. He goes, no, I was looking online and I want to do that. And I'm like, hey, cool, I was thinking of doing the same. I'm thinking I was going to have maybe one. Like I was saying in the welcome video, it was going to be the talk. People come over, it's the showpiece, it's like coffee table talk, or like, hey, what is that? It's just to, pass the time. So he goes to me, no man, you should look online, whatever, if you want to build the arcade, but you need a house first. I'm like, he's right. Now I'm in an apartment in Toronto, in Canada. I'm thinking, look, my wife and I are saving for other things, saving for a house to build this dream man cave of mine. I'm thinking, hey, let's check out what he's saying. So the night passed, we had a great time. I'm a big cigar smoker, which I'll get into even later, and we had a couple of cigars, and we were outside, and we came back in because, God forbid, you could smoke indoors these days. Anyways, we had a couple drinks, and after I got home, that was that. I was on break at work, and I'm like, I'm bored. What am I doing? So I go on work, and I'm on YouTube, and I just typed arcade man caves, and everything came up. John's Arcade came up, which was like, what? This can happen? Other guys that had their man cave come up. People on how to repair them. I'm like, wow, I never even thought to even, to think about YouTubing this and thinking that we have all the resources in the world. I wouldn't even think of it. Like, I've looked at home theaters, and I've seen like a pinball machine in the back, but I never thought arcades. So I started to research it. I was over my break. My manager's giving me shit. I'm like, wait, man, fuck, I want to do it. He goes, get back, do it at home. I'm like, fine. I get back home. My wife was at the gym or whatever he's doing. I'm like, hey, I was blown away. I'm like, yo, I can actually get these games. So I go online, eBay, Canadian sites that, I can always link and post, that have local type things. So I just typed in arcade machines. Now, one of the games we were talking about before, he's older than me. He was born in the 70s. I'm 1980. I'm an 80s kid. So, and I'm like, Pac-Man's old school. I didn't really grow up with it too much. I'm like the late 80s, early 90s game because I was always a fighting game fan. And that's kind of why the whole top tier name came about, which I'll get into in the later videos. As like you can see, a lot of my games are and will be more fighting games. So he goes, yeah, I want a Miss Pac-Man and a Galaga and a Gyrus. I'm like, I don't remember all those. I remember Pac-Man and Galaga, but whatever. So I just looked online and I see a Pac-Man arcade machine, this one behind me. And it was a pretty much straight goods ads, like a Craigslist ad. Craigslist ad. He said to me, you were saying, Miss Pac-Man, original dedicated machine, which I didn't know what dedicated meant, so I'm like, okay, whatever. Original, I never knew, original CPO, original marquee, a little PCB, original cabinet, original paint. So I'm like, hey, if it's original, like a car, I'd rather it maybe a little beat up, almost like patina on a gun. I kind of like it a little with a little character, because it shows that it's the age of it. If it was too perfect, I'd think it's a restore, or someone overdid it, like it looks fake. So either way, I emailed the guy. He wanted $1,800. Now we're talking Canadian prices. Anyone that's in America, I know you're saying, Steve, no. It's Canadian prices. We pay more because there's less of us, and our dollar, actually at the time, the irony, our dollar is par. Now you guys are around 89, 90 to my dollar. So either way, he was asking $1,800. I'm like, I knew it. It was too expensive. Fuck it, no way. I sent him an email, and I'm like, hey, out of curiosity, I was interested. I never knew they were that expensive, because he said wants to sell it quick. I'm not a fool. I'm in sales myself. So I'm like, look, anyone that wants to get rid of it, he's going to go high, like all those pawn shows you see on TV. So I'm like, I'm not a fool. I emailed him saying, hey, man, I'm interested. I was curious. And I'm like, hey, why don't I give you $1,000? Now remember, I'm new to the hobby. Like all of us, we always pay a little more for our first game because we don't know any better. So what happens is, I send him an email. I'm like, hey, man, I'm looking at around $1,000. Cash, I have it. My wife was like, okay, yeah, whatever, Steve, I don't care. She didn't even think twice. She's thinking, well, we're going to have an arcade machine in the apartment? Get out of here. And then I was going to spend the money. He emails me back saying, Steve, no, man, I can't do it. It's worth more than that. I'm thinking, I don't know, is it? Did a little more research. Finding that even in the US, a good one like this with and you'll see the art in the next video in the whole cabinet, where he showed me pictures, it didn't look faded, it didn't look, broken or whatever else. I'm like, it looks good, it looks okay. So I told my wife, I'm like, hey, I actually just got money back as a tax credit. So I'm like, hey, I told my wife, I'm like, hey, Mary, I might get this game. She was like, yeah, okay. I email him, turns out he bought a house in Florida. Now, sorry to say for the Americans, when the housing market went down, a lot of Canadians and other people were eating up the market. Cheap real estate. So this guy bought a condo in Florida. He needed money fast. He goes, I need money to put it down. I want to put down this much. I want to get this thing. He was bidding with another Canadian dude in Florida. So, and I'm like, look, man, I don't have that much. And I'm like, just give me a price, give me something fair, and we'll get to it. He comes back with 15. I'm like, I can't do it, I'm sorry, period. He goes, what's the minimum you'll take it for? I'm like, you know what? Give it to me for $1,100. He goes to me, deal. So it was done. But I never had a truck at the time. I drive a Corolla. I'm not fitting nothing. He said to me, I live on the other side of Toronto, which is like further north, and you have to pick it up, or I have to deliver it. But he works shift work. He goes, I'm going to have to deliver it, but I'm going to charge you delivery. I'm like, okay, well, what do you want? He goes, well, to deliver it, I'm going to bring my buddy, whatever. And either way, it was $1,200, $1,200, Canadian money. And I looked at my wife, I'm like, yo, you want to get this thing? She's like, she was so stunned. She goes, what just happened? She literally said, okay. 4 hours later, I'm buying this thing. I had cash in hand because I just deposited. I was going to put money in our savings. And she goes, take it. She goes, okay, fine, whatever. Thinking that something's going to screw up. We went back and forth. I'm like, sold. I'm like, when do you want to deliver it? He goes, the next day. He said, it's a turnkey machine. Now, I know a little about real estate. Turnkey meaning you don't have to do anything. You turn your key to open the door to your home and you don't have to renovate. He used that same term on the arcades. He goes, it's turnkey. You don't have to restore it. You don't have to drive to get parts. You don't have to mail it. You don't have to bondo anything. Well, I didn't know what the hell that meant. I'm like, all right, fine. $1,200. It's my first one. That's it. Cool. I have my vision with my my going to be home theater. He delivered it in the morning. He covered it in like a blanket because I didn't want people in my building thinking, yo, this guy has some extra cash, let's come rob the dude, because there's a lot of new people to the country in my building, and I'm, hey man, anytime you see people have money, whether I bring my rings, people, it's tough times, so people really want to, might take advantage. But either way, so he delivers it, wraps it around, no one really sees, dollies it, brings his friend, and he spent around a good 15 minutes explaining to me how it works, because normally he delivers it, he had a couple of machines, he delivers it curbside. He goes, no, for the same money, I'll help you out and whatever. He had it on free play, and I'm like, well, that makes sense. Why the hell would I put quarters in it? Why, when my friends came, I wouldn't charge anyone, but why would they? It's a pain in the ass. He had it on free play. I'm like, all right, I didn't know any better. He says to me, this is how you coin it up. He gave me the keys. Again, literally turnkey. He opened the back door. He showed me what the PCBs are, how to change the dip switches, which I'm like, all right, and pretty much played it to make sure it works. Gave him the cash, shook my hand, and he goes, all the best. And he goes to me, look, I'm going to be in Florida, in a nice way of saying, don't bother me. Like, it's yours, no guarantees. That's what I got. Nice guy, honestly, cool guy, and that was the deal. My wife wakes up, she was asleep. She goes, what the fuck? She woke up to him and she goes, do you actually got it? I'm like, yeah. So that was the pickup. That's kind of what started it. And then that's pretty much what got me hooked. I played it. I didn't even play it that much. I played it. I kind of was just like, what did I just buy? I didn't know anything about it. I did my research, which I advise you do. Look at other people. Look at other people's machines. Look at the differences. Look at the quality. Look at the quality, what it goes for. But did I overpay? Maybe. Did I have to do anything to the cabinet? No. I'm going to get into that in my second video, which is going to be part 2, which is the cabinet in and out, serial numbers and whatnot. But I want to do this one, so this is how I got it and why I wanted it. Now, why I wanted it is, not only was it kind of like an impulse buy, it's a game that everyone plays. And I'm going to get to this in my memories segment in the 4th video, where I talk about how I remember it. And it's something that everyone could have played. My wife doesn't mind playing it. It's easy for her. She doesn't have to learn the moves or controls. An older generation, not to say I'm young or old, but an older generation would come and be like, you know what, I can pick it up and play. Everyone knows Pac-Man. Everyone knows about it. So you know what, it was just kind of a cool thing. People will talk about it, and that's why I got it. And again, it was going to be part of the whole dream I'm having, this cool man cave that eventually I'm going to be building. and I never knew at the time, but like you saw my other machines and more to come, oh my god, what did I get myself into? So that was the pickup. Again, machine was everything, I didn't have to do anything, 1200. I'm going to be reviewing what else I had to do with it. The only thing I had to do with it, which I do for every game, custom keychains, which I'll get into, and if you want help how to do it, and I printed the manual. So there was a slot in the back door, what we'll get into next video, where the manual sits, and I got my wife to print me the manual. I got it bound, and I'll show you that, and the keychain. Other than that, I haven't had to spend any money on it. I didn't have to drive everywhere to get, things like that, which I see people restoring, and it's admirable. That's great. I don't want to do it. I'd rather it works well, and that's that. Now, there was one little thing wrong about the machine, which when I remember I kept saying to you guys, it was always on free play. I'm like, okay. There was a reason for that. So, next video, this is just a quick one giving you the explanation. Next video, I'm going to be showing you the ins and outs, the serial numbers, so we can take a closer look at the machine, and we'll get to it. Other than that, that was the pickup for the Miss Pac-Man dedicated original cab. The reasons why I got it, how I got into it, how much it was, and I'm going to be putting, if you guys want any information about where to maybe find games, you guys are smart enough. Craigslist, eBay, local, local ads or whatever else. And if you ever need any more information about the game, let me know. Again, you guys will be seeing a lot more videos coming out once a week. This is my weekly. Next week, I'm going to be doing the cabinet itself, in and out. All the best, guys. Thanks again for checking the video out. Subscribe if you want to. Likes if you want to. Let me any notes or leave me any notes. And from there, welcome to the top tier. Again, this is just the beginning. All the best. Take it easy.